We are back. Another episode of the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWX. And man, I got it's like testosterone 10,000 in here right now. Holy smokes.
Yeah, we got some beef at the table.
It's probably like 6,000. I only do TRT, so.
Oh. Well, thank you for your transparency, Brandon.
Yeah, we talked about the last time.
Yeah, laid it all out on the table.
What's your favorite cycle? I was like, oh, okay.
Here we go. This is how this is gonna go. And you know what? It doesn't need to. It's evident. Yeah, there's 900 pounds, 1,000 pounds of man on this podcast right now. If you include Freddie, he's got a solid what are you, $180?
What?
How much do you weigh, Freddie? Oh, whoa!
Don't take that away from him.
Oh my God!
I mean, listen, crossing that 200-pound barrier is a big thing.
You always add 20 or 30 pounds to the guess, always. For a guy.
Oh.
For a woman, 20 pounds less.
I didn't know
Take
this.
it away.
Is that a rule?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys always were like, yeah, bro, really? I look 230? Oh, wow, that's great, man.
Bro, I broke 200 and I was like 12.
Just saying, we're talking about somebody else. Okay, you see, you're offended him. He's like,
sorry, Freddie.
He's like, I'm 200. 175.
204, right?
Dude, remember?
Oh, okay. All right.
Remember what it was like when we were so hard to get to 3 bills?
Yeah.
Like you work so long to get there, and then you got to stay there a while to keep it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, then someone says, what do you weigh? Like 280? And you're like insulted.
Yeah. You're like, you motherfucker.
When's the last time you weighed 300?
Oh, shit. It's been a stretch for me. When I started, I shouldn't say that. When I had to get myself down under 300 pounds when I was wrestling in Japan. Because in strongman, I was well over 300 pounds.
Okay.
And then, but I need to be able to bounce around and move around in there. But I still had to pick these big, these giants over my head. So I had to be kind of like 285, 90-ish. And then bodybuilding came. And obviously to, compete at the highest level, the open class, you got to be over 300 pounds in the off season. But you got to be in good shape. You can't just be fat 300 pounds.
No.
Yeah,
So
300 and diced.
Yeah, I would say over the last 3 decades, I've probably spent the lion's share of that over 3 bills. Not now. I'm actually, as I get a little older, I feel much better, a little lighter.
Yeah. Dude, I'm down in the 250s, and I'm not like you guys, but I just feel so fucking good in the 250s. Like,
Yeah.
when I'm big, and strong, I'm not a bodybuilder by any means, but when I'm like actually strong, when I'm telling Brandon like, hey, I'm actually throwing up weight, I feel like shit, but now I feel good. I got my golf swing, I can actually swing.
It feels good to be able to move. Yeah.
This is the best. Well, we go first hole, he just, you put in the water right away?
I duffed it right away.
What he did was he gave me the first hole to make me feel good, to get me comfortable. I just kind of chopped one out there. I was like, hey, I'm playing. He puts one in the water. And then I realized it was all just to let me feel comfortable. Then the second hole, he lights it up and starts playing his game.
Honestly, nothing I do golfing is on purpose. I can golf. Like I there'll be a hole where you'll be like, dude, this guy could be on the tour. And then the next one, you're like, did he just go straight Helen Keller? Like, what is wrong with him? It's like that. It's funny because Freddie's first time out golfing with me, he was like, I had the worst. It was like I forgot everything, and I've been golfing my entire life, and I took some time off, and then as my body changed, my game changed. Like when I was like a tall, like skinny guy, I had a great game, right? And when I was fat, I was still really good, but then when I put muscle on, now I'm like not good. Like I have like no control over anything. I don't know my own strength. I have no,
Right.
whatever, no finesse. I'm just a meathead now. So now I'm trying to like figure it out again. But as I creep down into like the low 250s into the 240s, I'm starting to feel like more agile, more whatever.
When you put that big, when you get big, when you put muscle on, that muscle's got to be trained to do what you want it to do. Right. I mean, it'll do what you want it to do, but you've got to put it in that path. You got to let it know what you want it to execute, and it'll become comfortable. But doing so, you were just talking about swinging a baseball bat for the first time.
Yeah, for the first time
in forever.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't have a pecs the last time I swung a baseball bat, which was like 20 something years ago.
Yeah, right, little league.
But you know what's interesting though is that there's a perception that if you have muscle, you're always going to be stiff and bound up. Yeah. It's not true.
No.
Lack of mobility doesn't come from muscle. It comes from the joint. So if you actually, that's why I have you do functional things, a few days a week, to help with that. But, even when I was bodybuilding and competing, I was actually still very limber and athletic. Like I could dunk, I could do the splits. I could go straight over, touch my palms to the floor. Like I could do all that stuff, but I've just gotten away from it.
I've seen bodybuilders. They're big as a fucking house. They're doing splits on stage. Yeah. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Like I said, it's not, it's just because when you train like a bodybuilder, it's so one dimensional.
Yeah.
And you train your body just like Johnson, like you train your body to do that one movement pattern.
So my only question is, and I'm sure everybody's thinking this, almost everybody has to be thinking of this. When a bodybuilder does a splits on stage, what keeps the sack from coming out of the side of the...
You don't have one.
You don't have a sack.
No, your balls are like Skittles, man.
You bodybuild your sack away.
Yeah, you basically got testicular atrophy.
How is that?
Nobody's got balls on stage.
No, I don't know. I mean, balls. I'm talking about sack. I've been on TRT and testosterone long enough to, I can hang with you guys. I don't have balls. I'm built for speed these days. Who cares about big balls?
I don't know.
Well, I would say those.
I've never met a woman that's been like, "Oh my God, his balls were so big, I couldn't stop with them." Like,
that's
what?
Weird. Yeah, that's weird.
Well, but here's the thing: when you put your suit on, I mean, it's just itty bitty, and it's difficult. I mean, to get that thing up over your ass, I mean, she's got to help me get it on. So, I mean, it's not like it's just this loose fitting thing. I mean, it's fucking on tight. Yeah. So the sack is basically
it's contained.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it is contained. I don't know if you put Botox on them or.
That's funny.
Anyways,
he's like, anyways.
Yeah. Like I said, everybody's thinking this. So
I think you're the only one.
I'm the only one thinking this. I'll take it. It's
definitely the first time I've been asked that. So
is it?
Yeah.
Well, I've never been a guy who can come close to do splits, and I've never been approached for that question.
Oh, but if you were doing the splits, they'd be like, "What happens with the sack?"
When I think of doing the splits, I think of what happens with my groin because, oh my God, just watching somebody do the splits makes me cringe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I can't touch my toes, let alone do the splits. I'll get there. So yeah, I mean, in terms of mobility though, and this is kind of a good conversation. Like you were saying, the mobility is coming from the joints, right? And I think a lot of guys, big guys, were like, "Oh, we're not mobile," and most big guys though are not mobile.
Right.
What's your guys' take? What's the best way to handle this? I mean, obviously consistency, but other than that,
well, I think just being consistent with any type of mobility, and I think most bodybuilders lack lateral movement altogether, right? And that's something that if you look at Branch Warren, I don't know if you Branch Warren is. He's an Olympian, well-known bodybuilder. All of his injuries have been outside the gym.
Yeah.
100%. Falling, slipping out of his truck, getting bucked off a horse. That's kind of a freak accident. Who'd survive that. Falling down the stairs, things like that. So, anytime you're in the gym, that's a very, I would call it an unnatural movement because you're not going to mimic that type of movement outside the gym doing anything. So doing lateral movement, I think, is huge. But, doing forward and backward, flexion movements, doing spinal rotation, all those things, those are all things that I had you doing too. And it's just doing them. We're doing yoga, doing anything outside of the gym is just going to be huge. And it's probably not going to be as effective if you've never done it and you've been lifting a certain way for a long period of time. But if you are going to start, implementing that, be consistent with it. And if you're just starting off with training, that's only going to benefit you more because a lengthened and healthier muscle is going to be a better contracting muscle.
Right. I think this is important for, guys that are not, and I don't think that really most of us in terms of how we coach and who we're actually pushing ourselves towards as far as who we're trying to attract, they're not bodybuilders. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of guys that are like me that are I want to add 6 or, I want to take away six strokes from my game. Right. Mm-hmm. Or, I want to get up and feel good, and a lot of guys that are going through transformations, they see the surface. They see, I want to have a 6-pack. Right. Mm-hmm. But they don't realize what other benefits can come with this. And when you actually have good coaching, when you have professionals like you two, right? I'm coached by Brandon, and you guys understand this. I'm a fitness coach. and Brandon would roll his eyes at me when I say that because, I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable as him. But look, I'm coached by Brandon. And the reason I'm coached by Brandon is because I need that knowledge. I need that. He knows if I describe to him what I want, he knows how to get me those results. And that's why hiring somebody, if you have certain specific goals in mind, or even better yet, you don't even know what your goals are, and you take the direction from somebody who does and knows what they should be.
I think even a lot of people, just a good starting point for them is to feel better.
Yeah.
And I think probably, I would say probably 99% of people don't realize how bad they feel until they start to feel better. And when you start getting to that point where that's my favorite part about coaching is watching that light bulb with people, is they get to a point where, and I could talk about this all day, man. People lack self-esteem, they lack confidence because they've never given themselves a reason to have it in the first place. They start something like this, they've had enough. They're like, I just want to feel better. And they start to feel better. And then that starts to establish confidence and self-esteem. And that translates to work. It translates to family. It translates to their other relationships. And then they start to fall into other things that they never would have pursued because of just those elements of feeling better, you know? And it's like, you might not have a definitive goal, but prioritizing yourself to actually feel better goes, man, such a long way.
Opens up so many doors.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're so true. People don't know how bad they feel till they feel good. And a huge chunk of that is because the way that people eat now is diets are filled with processed foods. Processed foods basically is going to make that gut not function the way it's supposed to. And what people don't know is the lion's share of serotonin is released in the gut. And so if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're not getting your serotonin, you don't feel well. This is why so many people are on meds, antidepressant meds. I can't tell you how many clients I've gotten off of all meds, high blood pressure, even depression. It's because they're eating in a way, they're eating what they think is clean. They're eating by the numbers of the macro, but the macro, you can't get a gut healthy just looking at a macro.
Yeah. Macros make you look good.
Yeah.
Micros make you
yes,
healthy.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a micro and a macro?
Macronutrients are carbs, fats, proteins, right? Micronutrients come from your berries, from your vegetables, right? That's all my understanding is. It stops right there. So, and that helps like antioxidants. That helps with, getting rid of byproduct from the gut. Like, you have to also understand too that in functional medicine, one of the biggest elements of chronic disease come from micronutrient mineral deficiencies, right? And so you have to also understand the body works in a dynamic system, and you have adrenal, you have hypothalamus, you have adrenal, then you have all these things connect. Adrenal connects to sex hormones. It also connects to liver. It connects to glucose sensitivity, like all these things, and then thyroid, and then those distribute all cells on a cellular level. So if your liver is jacked up, that's 15 to 20% of your metabolism. If your cortisol is elevated, that's gonna affect your thyroid. That's gonna affect your sex hormone. That's gonna affect insulin sensitivity. So it's not like, one thing. Like, your gut is connected to everything.
It's all interconnected.
It's a dynamic system, right? So that's just taking things down a stretch, we're past where most people know about. But it's very easy to correct when you take a look at lab work and you start identifying certain elements. And just like John said, like the level of processed food that people eat is a detriment. It's a detriment. Yeah. So, it's easy to fix if people are open-minded and want to take that approach, but most people don't because it is a process.
Yeah.
I mean, just to take someone from, what they think is a good diet, which usually is not, and just get them into basically kind of convince them to eat single ingredient foods. You create a plan for them with single ingredient foods. The gut starts to get healthy. The micros go way up. They start to feel better. And at that point, everything changes. Now you've got a whole different platform. You've got a whole different playing field for someone to actually, like I love what you said. You first feel better. And when you feel better, then all these other open up.
Right.
When you feel like shit, all these doors are slammed in your face.
It's funny because Tristan Tate, Andrew Tate's brother, he talks about, and this just kind of made me think back to this. He talks about how a guy emailed him once and was like, "I'm so depressed. I feel like I'm going to take my life." And he's like, "Well, before you take your life, He's like, get a 6-pack.
Yep.
Let's get a 6-pack. And in my eyes, in what I think a lot, what you guys, in my eyes, it's like the journey of what you learn about yourself, right? The confidence that you build, because confidence is built off of repetition, right? Just repeating the same acts over and over and over again, right? So to me, it's like, okay, the journey is what gets me the 6-pack, but you guys take it on a cellular level.
Yeah.
You guys take it on a biohacking level that like, no. What you're actually putting in your body to achieve that 6-pack is what's going to change your entire thought process.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And the thing is that there's so much faulty information out there, and people think that they're like, you hear people say, I ate clean. Oh, that's a big term. I ate clean.
Oh yeah. What's that mean? Qdoba?
It doesn't mean shit.
Chipotle?
It means that it's, however they've learned what clean is.
It's basically a relative term to that individual's understanding of food.
Yeah. And it's eating clean. When someone says that, that's the first thing I know they don't know shit.
Yeah.
You take someone who you can look at their diet and you can almost tell what their problems are without them telling you. And then all you got to do is realign some of this stuff. And they literally, as their gut starts to get healthy, they start getting more energy, they start sleeping better. It's almost like, food can it's going to make a ripple effect. It's either going to ripple to make someone unhealthy, or it's going to ripple the other way to make them healthy. And if you get that ripple going the right way, life gets better. I mean, people will have more energy. They'll sleep better. They start metabolizing more body fat when they're sleeping. The list goes on. But it's all about getting that ripple effect going the right way. And it all starts with food.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about it is we got so many people that they're on all these meds, blood pressure medicine, and it's just the list goes on. And none of that stuff has to be there. I mean, granted, there's certain situations, so obviously where someone's got some sort of it's in their DNA, it's has passed down from generation to generation. But I've had clients where that is the case, and we've still gotten them off of their meds.
Oh yeah.
And it's because they think, it's genetic. But if you look in their family tree, it's because they're doing the same dumb shit that the generations before them were doing. If you change those patterns, all of a sudden everything starts to change. Yeah,
just because it runs in your family doesn't mean it's
100%.
Inevitable to get it. It just means you're more susceptible to it.
Yes,
that's different too. Generational has people have a lot going for them in terms of like say like our parents, their age, like nobody went to the gym. Yep. Nobody. I mean, they were smoking cigarettes and putting gas in the car. I mean,
right.
We've come a long way. So. Everything was butter and margarine, and that's what you cooked it in, and that's how I grew up. I'm 40, so things have come a long way on the nutritional side of things. So it is a lot of people have that fear that they're gonna get all these things, and it's like you're in a lot better shape than you think you are if you just be a little bit more cognizant of what you're doing.
Yeah. And the thing is every year that goes by, we learn more, and it's crazy. I mean, what we knew. I mean, like. I love the whole idea. People still think that they got to starve themselves to lose body fat. Oh, it's so unbelievable. And people will fight you tooth and nail on this. I mean, granted, you can if you want to suffer. There was a time on this planet when we all knew for a fact the world was flat. Well, we know better than that now. There was also a time on this planet we knew for a fact
most of us
that you had to starve yourself and suffer to lose weight. Well, go to the other side of the fence. Learn to feed your metabolism. And your metabolism will it'll get bigger, stronger. I was equated to like a fire. You stoke that thing up, and it does most of the work for you.
There's a girl I just started working with. I trained her this morning. Actually, she just turned 20. She was with a coach. She was getting ready for her first bikini competition. She was with, I don't even know who this guy was out here. He's local. And she was doing 2 hours of cardio a day, 7 days a week.
Damn.
She was training 5 days a week. They increased it to 7 days a week. Basically, she dropped 3 pounds in 4 weeks. And she fainted in the kitchen. He also had her doing Clean T3, 20 years old. So when she came to me, she was 10 weeks out. Just to give you some perspective, I didn't even realize that she was in contest prep. That's how
she was that.
That's how far off she was. I couldn't even tell she was in contest prep.
Wow.
She looked like she was like didn't even work out.
Sick, almost sick.
She was soft. Like she didn't have any. She was just a normal looking girl, right? Sorry if you see this, but I told you that this morning. So anyway, but so So I took a look at this, and I'm looking at this program, and I'm like, did you do something to piss this guy off? Like, it's sabotage. And so I explained to her how metabolism works. And to John's point, you can only, and I tell this to everybody in terms of, losing body fat, you can only do so much cardio, and you can only take away so much food.
Yes.
And you get to that point where it's like, well, what now?
Yeah.
Right.
You got no more cards to play.
Right. So your body is adaptable. It's made to adapt, thankfully, because if it wasn't made to adapt, we'd all be fucked. Yeah. Right. Anything that we eat, our body would absorb it 100%. And if we, had to go a few days without eating, like we would just die right away. So adaptation is important. But I had to explain to her how metabolism works. And like John, I use a campfire example. If you take a piece of wood in the morning, you set it on fire, and then you don't put anything back on until 6 p.m. What's that fire going to look like?
It's done.
It's either going to be out or it's just barely going to burn. But if you do it at 6 o'clock and then say like 9 or 10 o'clock, and then so on and so forth, at the end of the day, that fire is blazing.
Yep.
And that's how metabolism works,
yep.
right? So you want to get to a point where you are actually feeding upward because your body has a self-preservation mode. And that's, and you can't fault people because they only know what they know. And like John said earlier, there's so much, in today's age of information, like ignorance is a choice, but it's so difficult to understand and be able to delegate what information is credible and what's not. But the idea is to be able to feed upward, but that takes process, just like what you and I did, right? We got to that point where you were losing, then we were able to start increasing because your body was demanding those nutrients. It was burning through them. It was utilizing them. And so the faster that went, the more we feed. And it's like you're still building tissue. Your glycogen storage is great. Like nitrogen retention is great. Your body fat's getting lower. The energy is great. And you're firing on all cylinders. But there's a process to get to that point. And sometimes it takes others more time than others do, right? So,
well, I always try to explain to people, and I'm trying to get them to understand what you just said, because most people have a hard time digesting all of what you just said. Is that think of your body as it's a creature. Think of it like a pet. You don't starve your pet. You don't let your pet go days or long periods of time without water. And so the body's a creature. If you don't treat it properly, it's going to get stubborn. And just like you're saying that you beat somebody up, or you beat that body up, or you beat up your pet, so to speak, you don't take care of it. There's a certain level of like a trust. It's not going to trust the fact that when you start to feed, it's going to keep coming. Once the body starts to realize, okay, goodness, I am getting fed, on a schedule. I am staying hydrated. I am getting adequate sleep. I'm being cared for. The body holds body fat because it's a survival mechanism,
right?
And so you let the body kind of realize, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. It starts to cooperate. Mm-hmm.
Well, fat is also our main functioning nutrient, right? So we don't need protein. We don't need carbohydrates. like 65, 70% of our brain is fatty tissue. So that's why a lot of times, like if you see people who over diet excessively, they're skinny, quote unquote, skinny fat. Yep. So they started, and that's extreme, and that's over a long period of time, but the energy expenditure was really high. The calorie intake was very low, and it was extreme enough to where their body started tapping away at tissue and holding on to body fat, because that's what happens. Because if you get to a point where you're over dieting and you're overdoing cardio, whatever it is, your body's going to start to tap away at muscle, and it's going to hold on to fat with a death grip. Yep. Then when you start to consume nutrients, it's going to convert that to glucose and fat even faster, because again, it's basically in a state of survival and self-preserving, right? Yeah, so it's going to sit there and try and retain as much as it can.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like what I love the way that we're going back and forth here, because it's like when I'm talking about trust, I try to dumb it down for my clients to understand. When the body doesn't trust and you do start to feed it, it's like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to store more, because God knows I'm going to get starved again soon. And I guess when it comes down to it, it's so complex, but at the same time, you can teach someone to operate in this feed the metabolism realm fairly simply, and they can learn to do it for the big picture and lead a much happier, healthier life.
Yeah, that's why I always tell people, in theory, it's very simple. It's very simple, but executing is what's difficult.
Yeah,
it's because you have to work around daily demands, time, family, work, everything. So,
100%. Yeah. So, I already know this. And this is a tough one. This is a tough question. But Brandon, we've talked about this before where, your approachability in terms of you being your resume, right? Being your size, looking the way you do, clearly not natural. Nobody on this are. And I've read through some of your comments, right? And it's like, it's like brutal, right? And it's like, there seems to be a misconception of how we treat what we do with our bodies and what we expect out of our clients. How do you combat that? Well, yeah, man, if I just took a bunch of Tren and Synthol, like I'd look like you too.
I'm like, no, you wouldn't.
Dude, I love you.
I'm very blunt with that. I literally, if I ever have people, and honestly, like I don't let people get to me, I could give two shits.
Right.
If somebody said to me, I'd say, then do it.
Dude,
like by all means, like have at it.
Dude, Mike O'Hearn has got the best. He says he's the best saying. People say that, and he'll just say, "I'll buy it for you. You still can't do what I do."
Yeah, you can't do what I do. And you know what? My rebuttal to that is like, it's not that you can't do what I do. You won't. You just don't, and you haven't, and you don't want to, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. It's like I've done this for 20 years. Yeah. 20 years. I said, when was the last time you did anything without fail for 20 years? Yeah. And I'm not saying using anabolics. I didn't start that till I was 26. And I'm 40.
It's the lifestyle.
And that's it. It's like I eat 5 and 6 times a day. I'm going to the gym, training hard. Like I do it because I love it. Yeah. And that's not you, and that's okay. I used to always give people a hard time. I was so neutral. They would say something like that. I'd be like, yeah, but your bank account wouldn't be as big if you did that. Or I always say something like that just to be like, oh, well, I'm just kidding around. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you are. You did dick, like, I fuck off, bro. Like, but it's just stupid, man. People are always going to have something to say. Nobody knows how to be indifferent about anything. And
yeah. In terms of haters, like no one sees it more than me.
That's whatever.
But yeah, I think that when people, this is a good opportunity for you guys to like put out, your knowledge. Cause I know, and again, I work with Brandon. Okay, I know your knowledge, but I work with Brandon, and I can tell you right away that for me, what I was doing, and I've worked with coaches before that have set me straight, but initially what I was doing was depleting my fats, high protein, whatever with my carbs. I had numbers, right? I was given goals, and yeah, they made me look good, and then I just took a bunch of shit, right? I just stack a bunch of shit and willy-nilly. Like I thought I had a, I did just whatever Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire would do, right? That was my thought process. Like, Deca, D-ball, and then when I want to cut, I'll take EQ and Masteron. And like, that was like what, all I really knew, and then you guided me a little bit differently with how I look at everything and how I administer things. And then all of a sudden I started feeling good.
Yeah.
The thing that people don't understand.
Real quick, sorry. Remember when we started talking, I said my body was sensitive to certain things. And you're like, no, that's not.
No, it's not.
And I was like, no. Like I get like, I get like, this and this, or there's days where I'll be like famished, like from the Deca. And he's like, it's not the Deca. I'm like, I'm like, and everything I was like saying to, I was like, but it's the only way I could possibly do it. And then all of a sudden I was like, I had an actual program. And I was like, wow, like 2 weeks in, I feel like a fucking new person. And now I feel amazing. Like the best thing about this too is, and I think a lot of people need to understand this, that like for somebody like me, and you guys may not know this, may have never heard this before, but somebody that deals with, so I'm obviously a recovering addict, recovering alcoholic. I've dealt with depression and anxiety. And I still deal with certain levels of mental health, with who I am and whatever. And so every day, typically you feel a little bit different. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then when you compound, a diet that may not be exactly the proper micronutrients is what you're talking about. Yep. And then you're also using PEDs and other supplements and stuff like that. Every day feels a little bit of good days, and the days you're tired, and the days that like, you know what I mean? And for somebody like me, and anybody that knows what I'm talking about, and I know more people do, where you do feel all over the map throughout the week, Imagine a life where you could feel exactly the same, which is good, every single day.
Yep.
Every day you feel the same. You wake up and it's like, this is how I feel. This is who I am now. And that is an achievement that maybe you guys didn't know that some people never could imagine.
Yep.
They would never be able to. My stress level's high. My stress level's low. I'm happy now. Vacation's next week. I'm checked out. You know what I mean? Like imagine like where your body feels the same way, your digestion feels the same way, your mindset feels the same way, everything feels the same way and is firing on all cylinders, at least with what I think as of right now compared to where I ever was before. Sure. And I guarantee I could go even further than this with the proper guidance. And that is something. So I mean, I'm not just singing your praises, sing your praises. It's having somebody with knowledge and not just somebody who's going to say, here's your macros, right? And I'm guilty of doing that. I'm guilty of coaching that way. And when I realized that it wasn't the right way to coach, okay, Wes Watson does that to people and teaches all of the coaches that train in the GP life to give people 20, 40 splits or whatever, you know what I mean? Or 40, 20 splits, 40% protein, 40% carbs, 20% fat. And that's what it is. 300 calorie deficit, 400 calorie deficit, and that's it. And that's how he trains the people how to coach. So that was how I was trained how to coach. And then when I realized I had no fucking clue what I was doing, I hired someone that did. I hired Jonathan, right? Different Jonathan, right? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You set up my diets for my clients. Yeah. And now all of a sudden my clients are getting off medications, getting off the stuff and feeling really great. And their lives are put back together. And they're now feeling the way that I feel now, right? Yeah.
Well, think of it like this, though. You got the schlep who's eating fast food, multiple times per day. And, for him to go to some sort of a macro system is a big step forward. So for that guy, macros
anything's
are great.
Better than what most people are doing.
100%. But the macro, I mean, goodness, it's just the macro system is just to get the guy from going from eating Big Macs to start moving in the right direction, lose a little body fat in terms of feeling better and gut health and getting that positive ripple effect of health going in the right way. Macros isn't going to get that done.
No.
Yeah, just a simple eliminating a lot of those things that they're doing is going to yield a positive response. I mean, it doesn't take much for people like that who are literally just at the bottom of the barrel in terms of like what they do for themselves. Like you get them to drink like a gallon of water for a week and they're just like, wow, I actually feel pretty good. It's like, oh, dude, it's just water, What
about when you have your client, you say, look, first out of bed, I need you to drink a big glass of water right out of bed. And they're like, makes a huge difference. It's because they're basically living their lives dehydrated. They wake up dehydrated and they go through the whole day that way. Or even worse, I mean, I know people who literally drink, the only thing they drink is sugar soda.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oh my God.
My brother was from Tennessee and he did that. He used to say water would rust his pipes. So he always drank Coke or RC, like Royal Cola, like a 12-pack a day. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man.
Yeah. I don't know.
Dude, I have not drank a soda and like a full sugar soda.
Oh, yeah, no.
I don't even know that I really ever gotten into it. Maybe like a root beer float,
It doesn't taste good. My tongue says, what is that? Don't do that again.
Yeah. You know what? I actually had one... Kristen Jackson and I went to a taco place over in Irvine. It's a friend of ours, and they have the Mexican Cokes in the glass bottle. And he's like, try one of these. I was like, all right. I'll tell you what. It was really fucking good. I was like, wow. I'm like, this is different.
The little glass bottle?
The little glass bottle, yeah. I was like, holy shit. I was like, what is this?
My wife's Mexican, so she loves that.
Oh, I was like, for sure there's cocaine in here or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow.
Well, I mean, back in the day there was.
Yeah. That's why I was like, is this original? Like, holy shit.
Is this better than a time capsule?
Yeah. So I took a drink and Kristen started cracking up. She's had it before. I haven't had one. I was like, what is this? It was so good. But that was the last time I had one.
Yeah.
And first time I had one in, I don't even know how long, probably since I was high school.
See, I'm eating my sugar. If I'm going to, I don't want to drink my sugar.
You're going to that ugly, stupid cookie place.
Well, here's the deal. Did I tell you?
No. Did you go to Pateria?
No. No, there wouldn't be any place for it in my life anymore because I was hypnotized.
Oh, you told me.
I was hypnotized.
I literally want to take you to Pateria.
I have no desire for sugar. It's gone. It's
awesome.
gone.
Hypnosis is great.
Well, it's not really hypnosis. It's called pattern interruption.
You were told me about
It's called
it,
Swish, is what it's called, Swish. And Jim Huntziker, who's a coach in JWX. Okay. He's a sobriety coach, and he uses this method, Swish, that you can use towards any compulsion, gambling, drinking, drugs, right? And I have all of that under control. Gambling, if I'm going, I'm going. And if I need to blow a quick 50K at the high stakes blackjack table, it'll happen, you know? But my sugar compulsion was fucking out of this world. If I start, I cannot stop.
Yeah.
And so he does the method with me. Takes about 10 minutes. Okay. And I did it. Okay. I actually like visualized it, got there, did it. And my first test, I didn't even realize that I did. So Lizzie always will eat like she's a normal person, right? Like she can drink a glass of Chardonnay, right? Like I'm drinking 4 bottles, calling the dope man, and I'm going to lock myself in a hotel for 3 weeks. Okay. She can have a half a cookie, right? I have a half a cookie. I'm having that cookie, Lizzie's cookie, her other half, right? And
get the car keys, and you're going to 7-Eleven.
Yeah, and I'm going. Yeah, and I'm getting a box of Oreo, double stuffed, all of it. Okay, but there's little character defects with my sugar that I have, where she will have like even like little things like half of a Quest bar or half of like a protein treat, right? And she'll leave it on the counter, the other half like on a little plate, and come back after the gym and eat that or save it for later on, right? She saves a Quest bar. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Who does that?
Okay.
Stop being weird, Lizzie.
So yeah, right. No, exactly. You know my life. You'll get to meet my wife tomorrow. She's the most sweet woman you've ever met in your life.
She's pretty awesome.
But I'll naturally grab it, pop it in my mouth, and eat it. Never think. And she's like, "Oh, I was saving that for later." I'd be like, "Well, too bad. Get another one."
Thought you were saving it for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is her right there. She's always saving something, and if I see it, I'm like, that's going down.
Yeah. It does not stand a chance.
Yeah, if you want to save it, it's got to be out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, put a label on it or something.
So she does it, and the other day she did it, and it was last Sunday. It was right after. It was a day after I went through this process, and she had it sitting right by like where I mix up my intro workout, my pre-workout, like all my stuff. You know exactly what I'm mixing because you set me up with it, and I didn't even see it. Didn't even like I saw it, but it didn't even faze me. And then went back, afterwards, mixed up my post workout, sitting right there. And then I told her about that, and she goes, "Well, you noticed that you didn't eat my other half of my. It was a Legend Pop-Tart,
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, I noticed you didn't even eat that other thing. And it was like a gong went off in my head, and I was like, it's gone, it's gone.
What happens if you try it?
So actually, it's interesting because like. I needed something quick, like just to eat real quick before training the other day. I was just like feeling a little famished because I don't eat a lot of carbs anymore. So I was like, I'm gonna eat one of the Legend cinnamon rolls because Bruce Cardina sent me like a box. Bruce owns Legend in Boston. He sent me. He's a good friend of mine, and he sent me a box of this stuff, like huge, everything. Yeah, all the chips and all of it. And I went to grab one, and naturally, I would house that thing. Like it says, put it in the microwave for 10 seconds. It's never going to make it to the microwave. It's going straight into my mouth. Yeah. Okay. I might accidentally eat the wrapper too. And I ate half of it. And I was like, that's good. That's enough. And I like set it off to the side. And I'm like, what the fuck?
That's got to be exciting.
I graduated. Like I graduated.
That's a new experience.
It's new. Yeah. It's totally new.
Yeah.
Today we had those Kind bars.
No, I didn't have.
You didn't have one. I did. Yeah. But I double back normally. Give me another one of those things.
Well, and see, even a Kind bar, it's granted it's supposed to be healthy, but there's still shit in there that doesn't digest well. So for me, if I eat a Kind bar midday, my digestion is going to be off for the rest of the day. So if I'm going to have one of those, it's going to be right before bed because then I go to sleep and I don't really notice that my track is messed up.
Oh. Carbs at night, though. That's a good idea. You sleep better.
You do sleep better.
Yeah.
What are you guys? So, what about beef jerky? What's your guys' opinion on beef jerky?
Listen. Fucking Kristen loves beef jerky.
Oh, me too.
I'm like, it's not even a thing where I come from. Here,
talking about you're from the Midwest.
You don't have that. People, it's like chop.
You guys go to the gas station and there's the beef jerky.
People don't give a shit about beef jerky where I come from. Okay, I'm not in like Nebraska where they fucking make.
Wow, Michigan's a big beef jerky state.
They make jerky at the gas station like behind the place.
Well, Indiana is like, you don't even stop to see if they have beef jerky. You get the fuck out of there the minute you cross the border. No offense.
It's
but
not
it is
Ohio.
listen. No, Ohio's even worse.
I know.
But,
That's why I said it.
you know, Corey, my buddy, moved back to Indiana.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Why?
exactly.
Why? That's what I always tell people. Like, why'd you move to California?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, what
Support.
brings you here?
He
I said,
wanted the support from his family. I'm like, dog, struggle.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
You couldn't pay me to go back.
No, but you live by Gary.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Dog,
Yeah.
get the fuck through that state. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as I enter, I'm like, how quick can I get to Chicago? and that's me desperate to get to Chicago of all places.
Yeah, Chicago's worse than Gary now.
It's bad.
Yeah, Chirac. They're like, oh, we didn't have anybody killed today. This is the third time in 7 years. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's brutal. Oh,
Yeah.
Chicago's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad.
Jesus Christ.
That's literally the news.
Really?
They're like, nobody was killed and shot today. This is the 5th time in the last 4 years. I'm like,
Jesus.
Wait,
Are you
what?
shitting me?
Yeah,
Well, there's
seriously.
like Flint though. Flint, they don't even have the news there. They don't even bother even do like
just
covering
assume the
anything.
worst.
Flint, they don't. Their police are volunteer.
Oh, Lord.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
their police are volunteer. It's that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even go on Flint. You don't even.
That's
That
crazy.
guy, I actually had a
Like
phone call
Detroit is desirable compared to Flint.
for sure.
Like
Really?
really desirable compared to Flint.
You know, I'll be honest. I've gone to the Midwest quite a few times, but I'm just kind of in and out for events. I've never spent enough time there to experience what you're talking
You're
about.
not missing anything.
No, I figured. I mean, just even in and out quick, I was happy to get back to the coast.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
But this whole thing was about beef jerky, you know.
Yeah.
But so I a little funny side note. So we were up at our cabin in Taunton, as you know, because I had such terrible connection. We had a hard time communicating.
Yeah, it was really bad.
We had some guests up there, and when they left, they had actually left a bag of turkey jerky,
Yeah, it's great.
and I was like, you know, shit. I was feeling like I wanted to venture just slightly outside the lines of my diet. It was, you know, it was nighttime. I'm looking for something, and you know, I usually do some almonds and find, you know, just kind of like funny enough, almonds and a little bit of sugar-free syrup will actually do the trick for me.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Anyway, so I see this bag.
I have sugar-free syrup.
I see this bag of turkey jerky, and I open it up. I take a bite, and I was just like, I'm looking in this bag like, what the fuck is in here? Jesus Christ, this is good. And I turn it over. I look at the ingredients. I'm like, well, there's a little sugar, but I mean, God, but they make that shit taste good.
Dude, I house it, and it's funny because I'll eat one of those huge like 2-pound bags
Yeah.
before bed, which isn't ideal, I know, but I wake up I'm the same weight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, as far as snacks go, it's
Yeah.
kind of an ideal snack. You know, even it's
Well, yeah, 'cause the
randomly
protein
processed.
outweighs
Yeah,
everything, but it is but it's processed.
everything's processed.
But I
you know?
understand. But is there okay? Because obviously they use like the sauce on it that has sugar and different preservatives and stuff like that. But the actual beef jerky itself is just
Yeah.
Well, you got to kind of
Driving
look at
meat.
it from a standpoint. Excuse me. If you're in a position where you have to find something to eat, say at a gas station, that's going to be a better choice at a gas station. Of course, you're looking. Hopefully, you're going to find. If you're in California, you may find some hard-boiled eggs in one of their healthy sections. But you're better off to eat some beef jerky than to not eat at all.
right.
You know, to a certain extent, you're trying to find the best option you have in the situation.
Yeah.
So many people are trying to find somebody in the gas station, and you know, almonds are a great option. Beef jerky is, you know, obviously it's in the realm too. So I think jerky is one of those things to where in the right setting, it's a great choice.
It's it satiates me too. So
Yeah.
and which is like very rare for like a straight up meat to satiate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. What else?
What else?
Let's talk a little bit more about that. I like this conversation about, you know, we already kind of discussed it on the last time you were on the show, but
What's up?
how's your boy like in California?
Oh, he loves it. So he started over our uni this week over in Irvine.
Yeah.
Which is cool because things are so much different here, right? The school that Jax comes from it's called the Tri-Town area. So it's like Irvine is where I'm living right now. And Irvine alone is like bigger than the county that I come from. Okay.
No shit.
Yeah. So small town.
Wow.
And so his school is about 9,000, about 1,000 or more to a class.
Yep.
Here it's like 250 a class. So it's much, much smaller, but the school is like top 10 in the state. I think it's like 10th in the state ranked
Yeah.
academically. So,
well, yeah, that's like a lot of smart people go to Irvine, man. A lot of Asian white folks go there. To, you know, it's very, you know.
It is, right? So Jackson's incredibly bright. He just doesn't always apply himself. So when we came here, one of the whole reasons of coming here was to give him an opportunity to start fresh, right? Different environment, different schooling, different everything, more opportunity, all of it, like, you know. So first day, though, he goes in, he's like, man, it's like everybody was so nice. Everybody. He's like, kids were nice. They're like, oh, are you new here? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, where are you from? He's like, Indiana. They're like, oh, well, this is so-and-so. And they were introducing them to their friends. And I'm like, oh shit.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. He goes, he's like, back where he comes. He's like, he's like, new kids, like they don't get talked to for months. Like they, you know, and that's just how it is for whatever reason, right? That's what I've always said about Northwest Indiana. People are just rude. Like, and for what they've got a chip on their shoulder for whatever reason. I don't know. I have no idea why. Incredibly rude. Maybe they're miserable. I don't know. But yeah, everybody here is so nice and he loves it. He's like, I'm so excited to go to school. And he's taken more initiative in the first week of school than I've ever seen him take ever.
That's awesome.
Like, so he comes home every day. He puts his phone up on the counter. He's like, I got work to do. He's like, I'm excited. What we were talking about today when I picked him up. And he's like, I love this feeling. He's like, because he's going to go to the football game tonight with some of the guys from the basketball team. Like he's already making friends, which wasn't not a surprise because he's a pretty social kid. But I again, right, this is a different chapter for him, learning to adapt to a new environment, learning to acquire new habits that you haven't had or implemented before, right? This is a big transitional stage for him. And he's like, I love this feeling. He's like, and he couldn't really articulate it, but essentially it led to like, I love prioritizing my priorities.
Yeah.
You know, he goes, before I would, you know, succumb to the pressure of my friends, like, oh, I'm going to go do this and do that. And grades weren't really his priority. And he would get by with, you know, C's, but he's an honors student, like full blown could be. He's so smart. So that put the biggest smile on my face, man, to hear him just be like, because that to me, like it's clicking.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's clicking.
You can be the greatest parent, the most supportive parent, but you cannot change the fact that a lot of times kids become a product of their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you're from a small Midwest town, okay, and I'm not from a small Midwest town, but I'm from a Midwest town and I'm surrounded by small Midwest towns. Yeah. And the expectations are so low. The standards are extremely low. The ambition and the like the dream, right? It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then you take somebody out of that environment and you put them in an environment where it does exist, where the standards are high, where the expectations are high, and then on top of that, it's like fucking sink or swim in California.
Yeah.
Right. It completely changes someone's mindset. And if you can install that into them at an early age, you know, my son wants to be out here too. And he goes to a small town, Ionia, Michigan, like small farms, like town, you know what I mean? And you can only imagine, you know, what the life suckers are like that live in these small flyover towns.
Yeah.
That it's like, you know, I want for my son too to be able to be that. But that works for anybody. That worked for me that way. Take me out of my environment where, yeah, I always made a lot of money, but what the fuck else was I doing? I was miserable.
Yeah.
Right? I come to a city where like you can be great. There's an option to be great. There's an option to be noticed. There's an option to be pseudo famous.
Yep.
And guess what? I got all of it.
Yep. You have more opportunity to grow here. It's progressive, you know, and that's the ceiling is low in certain areas and the mindset is low. And I think a lot of that comes from you only know what you know. You only know what you've been exposed to. And I'm grateful because I've been able to travel so much, you know, with my bodybuilding career. So I've come out here for years and it's always been one of my favorite places. I never ever dreamed about living here. I'm like, this is too fucking expensive. But when Jackson was like, we were going to come here for spring break. And I was like, dude, I'm like, if you ever wanted to move, I was like, I would literally make arrangements tomorrow. That's how we ended up here. He's like, I'd do it. And I literally said, because the opportunities that you would have, and, you know, to go back to small town mindset, this is the most discouraging thing. And I said to him, I go, if you want to see the ones that want to see you win, tell them how happy you are right now and see what they say.
Yep.
And then try another time and complain about things and see how much they feed into it.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, people want to hear that you're not doing well. People want to hear that you want to come back home. People want to hear that you're struggling for whatever reason I don't know. And I could assume, but
Well, it's misery loves company.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's just like, but man, like that, and so he's done that. And he's like, holy fuck.
Mhm.
And so I think that's given him also a little bit more perspective as well, that he's around a different environment of people that want to do well in life, and they're more focused, and the kids are more focused. And it's like, I'm so excited to see him thrive.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Well, then when you raise your kids, obviously like the lives that we live, the lifestyle we've chose, you know, kids don't give a shit what you say. They care what you do. And so they mimic us. And so like with our daughters, you know, we raised them with good habits and all just healthy eating habits, you know, bedtimes, and their generation is so lazy and so unfocused. When you get a kid that's actually, you know, sculpted a little bit in their early years by, you know, the positivity mindset and having the proper perspective, and more importantly, living their everyday life with positive habits, they separate themselves so fast. And it's crazy to me. We're talking about how, you know, the kids in the Midwest are even worse, because I look at the kids. I've been in California, living here forever. And I look around and I see these kids and I'm like, my kids are separating themselves so quickly, largely just because they were exposed to the way that we live, and they adapted that.
Yeah.
And off they go. So I'm sure your boy is the same way.
Yeah. Jax comes from two households, right? So that's all he knows. So, and it's kind of polar opposite environments, going from one house to the other house, back and forth, you know, for his whole life. So that's always been a struggle, you know, battling that sort of thing. So it's like when he would come back, it's trying to instill certain things, and then it's like he would leave and they would come back, you know, for a week, and it was always trying to have to reset that. So that, again, that's kind of the main reason why I took the opportunity to like get the hell out. Like I said, I still have my business back home. I up and left. I packed up everything. I was like, all right, let's go. And ultimately just for that, because now I have him full time and I can stand just the consistency and the structure and the expectation and everything, right, is just going to be, it's going to be, you know, pivotal for him.
It's great.
So he didn't really necessarily have what your girls had, you know, but different living here than it was back home. But he has it better than a lot of kids do. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, well, this is all new.
On that level, you know, we're actually my wife and I, who's sitting over here, we're a mixed family too. So our kids did a lot of back and forth as well.
Yeah.
And when they were young, they loved to go to the other parents' house because there was all the shit they were supposed to eat.
Right.
There was all the stuff that they couldn't do, they could do. But then when they get older, now they're all young adults, and now they realize that, oh my God, they did us such a service.
Yeah.
And it's like, in terms of, you know, they're in the work. Two of them are in the workforce now, and they're separating themselves from the pack so quickly because they were raised in a way where they don't know any better. They're conditioned to be productive. They're conditioned to see opportunities rather than problems. And keep in mind, you got to constantly keep that stuff in check. So they're always coming. They're always reaching out to dad for a quick mental checkup, but. When it comes down to it, it's we're even surrounded with adults, like a lot of clients. It's almost like I'm not sounding, you know, like an asshole when I say this, but sometimes I have to treat them a little bit like I was raising my kids, because they don't have the perspectives to recognize that, hey, yes, this is a challenge, but I'm going to teach you how to get through this challenge, and there's going to be a better version of yourself waiting on the other side.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that clients need to understand, and it is actually going to, we talk about putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first, right? Taking care of ourselves first before we understand. If our needs are not met, we cannot meet the needs of our children and things like that, right? It's actually a really cool perspective to see how your children had the structure and the you know, and watched you guys be extremely disciplined. To be a bodybuilder is the ultimate level of discipline and sacrifice, for that matter. But there's no way a child wouldn't sit there and be raised by a father, or a father and a mother figure, whatever, that had that level of discipline, that, you know, and it wouldn't wear off on them.
Yeah.
They're far more likely to try to imitate or emulate a strong father and mother figure.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny because it's like, guys, like, a lot of times like guys will be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get my health right. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to do things for my kids. And it's like, dog, if you did it for yourself, you're going to do it. You're going to end up doing it for your kids way more than you would if you were doing it for your kids.
You know what though? What you just said is so common. And this is one of the things that I talk to people about when they're like, oh, I'm going to do it for my kids. Well, Mike, why don't you do it for yourself?
Yeah.
And people don't value themselves or their health enough.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever told you the story about the woman that came in. So I have Hashimoto, which is an autoimmune disease. One of my clients referred somebody to me. She comes into the gym. This is back home. And she's a little bit older than I am. And she doesn't know that I have Hashi's. And short story long, she's like, well, I'm going, I went to the doctor and they can't figure it out. And of course, she's an extraordinary case now, right? Nothing, I can't be helped. And I was like, okay. So I go, well, I said, tell me like, what did you have for breakfast today? Like, let's just dissect something. Maybe we can figure it out. She says, well, and I go, okay. So you haven't had breakfast. Got it. Well, I had coffee. And then around 12 o'clock, and I was like, heard enough. I said, do you go to a gym? Do you work out? Do you do yoga? Like, do you do any type of movement at all? Well, I have a membership. Okay, great. And then here come the excuses. I go, so you're not doing anything right that you said you were doing, right? I said, and so then I told her, I said, well, I have Hashimoto. And she's eyes lit up. I said, right. So I said, I can't remember her name. I said, whoever you are, Susan. I said, Susan, I'm like, if I told you that in let's just say 4 months, worst case, I can have you feeling and looking a lot better. Like it's a guarantee. I said, all you'd have to do, like few liters of water a day, maybe because she was tiny. I said, a few liters of water a day. I said, we could do 4 meals a day. I said, they would be laid out, there'd be flexibility there. I go, at the gym 4 days a week, no longer than an hour. I said, I want you to walk outside 30 minutes, 7 days a week. If the weather's bad, hop your ass on a treadmill. Could you do it? Well, and I was like, right. Yeah. So I'm going to flip the script for you. I said, hypothetically, she had a family, she had 2 kids. And I got real graphic. And I'll tell you why after. I said, let's just say hypothetically, I'm like, I came to you with this same thing. And I said, and if you didn't do this without fail for 4 months straight, that your family would perish. I said, but in the most violent of ways. And I got graphic. But to get her attention. Yeah. And she's like, ugh. I said, would you do it? She goes, well, of course I would. She's like, but that would never happen. I said, no, it wouldn't. I said, but that wasn't the point. I said, the point was to get you to acknowledge that you could do it, that you're more than capable of doing it.
Yes.
And then more importantly, you don't value yourself enough to do it. Why? And I just looked at her and she was just like tears. And I said, why is that? Is it because you feel selfish? And she shook her head, yes. I go, so you mean to tell me that you can't take 45 minutes out of your day because you feel like you're being selfish to your family, that 45 minutes that you're taking out of your day is such high quality time, because I would guarantee it that there's an iPad or a phone or a screen in front of your kids at some point. I said, am I wrong? And she shook her head, no. I said, so then tell me why. I said, because otherwise what's going to happen, I said, is you're going to continue down this path and you're going to be in such fucking poor health. I said that the ones that you're feeling selfish from taking away time are going to be the ones taking time out of their day to take care of your ass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's the reality of so many people. Yeah. That's the reality of so many people, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, people just do not understand it. They don't take care of themselves, that somebody's going to be taking care of them. And it's going to be, if they got kids, it's the kids, it's going to fall right in their laps. And so when people say, oh, I don't want to be selfish with my time. When I tell, get up 30 minutes early. If you need a little more time, get up a little earlier. Oh, I don't have the energy to do it. It's because of the way you eat.
Well, that's because you don't work out. And everything in parenting and just being an adult is always going to be damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a massive important lesson in there, just from a parenting standpoint, because what does that show your kids?
Yeah.
That you don't know how to choose yourself. And literally just today on the way home, and I was telling Jackson I was proud of him because he said that a lot of the guys, or a lot of the people that were going to the game tonight, are going to the town center, which is right down the street from school. That's where they all were. He got invited to go. He's like, man, I got homework. And that was where he was like, I feel so good to like prioritize my priorities. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, this is such a great quality. And I try to teach them this. I said, don't be afraid to choose yourself.
Yes.
Do not be afraid to choose yourself. And that's something I teach them. I say, it's not necessarily being selfish. Like sometimes things, right, that could be selfish. I said, but something like this is a priority to you. This is your goal. It's not up to anybody else to say that this isn't important. I'm like, because it's important to you. Right. Now, and obviously like there's context to this conversation that goes further. It's like, look, if you're a provider, if you're this or that, or if it's, causing somebody else pain, like then you don't like, use your best judgment. But in this case, right. Same thing with being a parent and choosing your own health. Like there's value to that and not being subjugative to, putting yourself on the back burner and allowing yourself to become degenerate. It's like teach your kids to love yourself and to choose yourself. Like that's so important.
Right.
In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. And excuse me. The whole idea of people, they're not doing things. So I can't do this. I can't do that. It just starts with creating one simple little habit, and you get that habit rolling, and then you stack another one on top of that. If you take a person who, like this lady you're talking about, you remove one, poor behavior pattern and you add in one good one, just that alone will change so much. And then next thing you know, we're doing this. Now we're going to put one more habit on top of that. You just slowly build the habits into someone's life. Next thing you know, they're living their I always say 24-hour loop because people say day to day. It's when you break it to the hour, sometimes it makes more sense. We live our lives in these 24-hour loops. Well, do we have more good or bad behavior patterns that exist in that loop? And all we got to do is just kind of nudge it to the side where you're starting to have, more good ones and slowly start to just removing one will make such a massive difference.
I think that's a good good point, because you definitely hear a lot of people talking about daily routines.
Yeah.
And I actually have an old client of mine down in Texas, and she's had back-to-back babies, and she's, reached out for some advice, and she's like, I have this whole routine, and there was a lot, and I was like, this is a lot. It's a lot to do in a day, and so
like Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. And I was like, which I get where your head's at. Like, I get it. You're trying to clean up everything, which is great. I said, but you're going to stress out over this and it's failing. I said, instead of trying to start a routine, I'm like, just start with one thing in the morning.
Yes.
And that's it. I'm like, and just kind of slowly go. I'm like, or maybe like if you're trying to wake up she said she's trying to wake up at 5:00. I said, set your routine from 5 to 8, whatever that routine is, a couple things, try to start doing that. And then go about your day after the 8:00. And then when you start to master that 5 to 8, whatever, you're trying to do from this list to plug in, in the other half a day where it's like 8 to 10 or 11 or 12, build a routine in like quadrants of your day rather than trying to do everything all at once, So, I mean, just to John's point, it's like a lot, those little things do go a long way.
Oh my God. It's all of the little things that you do every day that end up creating that ripple effect going in the direction you want it to. And realistically, all we really need to do to help people, to change people's lives is get that ripple going the right way. Whether it's moving a little or a lot, it's moving in the right direction. And it can just be a few simple little habits that make that happen. People are like, well, I just have a hard time, going for a walk in the morning. Okay, well, let's make it like this. You brush your teeth and then you go for the walk. And if they falter with that, I'll say, okay, you're going to brush your teeth, put your shoes on, go to the front door, walk outside, close the door, come back in. You don't get to go for a walk. You just need to have the habit of showing up to go for that walk. You don't get to walk yet. And then pretty soon they're like, God, this is kind of silly, and then it's okay. You get to walk for 1 minute. You have a non-negotiable of walking for 1 minute. If you get out there at 59 seconds, you decide you want to go for 2 minutes, do it. But you only have to go for 1 minute. And you create these simple habits for people that seem so achievable with the option to do more. And next thing you know, they're enjoying doing a little more because they feel good. That, the dopamine, it's the do it again drug. You do something, you overcome a little obstacle, and bam, you get some dopamine, and that it makes you it's a little win. And next thing you know, you're looking for a series of wins. You get people winning in the morning and their whole day changes. And there can be little itty bitty wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I tell okay, start off with drink a glass of water right out of bed. Win number one, brush your teeth, do some self-care right away. Don't go grab your phone and do nothing because now you're on the wrong foot already. You know,
you can't start your day losing.
Yes.
And I honestly, I don't understand how it's so hard. Like, don't you like wake up and you have to drink water? Like,
it's because we understand the value. We understand how good it feels. We understand how bad it feels if we don't do it. But if someone does it, I can't remember which one of us said this, but people don't know how bad they feel until they finally feel good.
Right.
And then you're like, I don't want to live on that side of the fence anymore. And people get so bent out of shape, but I can't do this. I can't go to the gym you don't have to go to the gym for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can commit a very small piece of your day to some form of movement. Let's not even call it working out. Mm-hmm. And that makes a huge difference. And, you know, a little blood flow, you know, it changes your physiology, which is just an expensive word for a little blood flow.
There you go.
Know? And when it comes down to it, just get people moving right out of the gates. They start to feel better, remove some processed food, just a couple little changes. You get them moving in the right direction. And then all of a sudden they start to see the light. Once they see the light, then they want to do it. That's one of the things that I really, really focus on with my clients is I just a couple little things you get started. They're like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I want to do more. When someone's doing something because they want to do it, it's very, very sustainable.
Yeah. This is good stuff. Well, anything else tonight? We're getting up to.
I actually put on my Instagram earlier. If anybody had a Q&A, if anybody wanted to ask questions, you want to go through a couple of these?
Yeah, let's go through a couple. Actually, that's good.
Okay. Somebody asked things athletes should consider when changing coaches. Mm-hmm. So if you have a coach, you may be not happy with them. What are the things that you consider before or in the process of, you know, changing coaches?
So probably right away would be, you know, where your current goals are.
Mm-hmm. Maybe expectations of the coach.
Expectations of the coach.
I would look for testimonials or asking their clients, because obviously Instagram, social media is always going to be the platform in which their clients are at. So I would reach out to the clients and ask them what they think about the coach.
Yeah, that's a good point. However, I'm starting to have this like, and I'm glad we actually discussed this because, or you brought this up because testimonial and case study in terms of coaching is, in my opinion, pretty misleading. At the end of the day, when you're talking about mentoring and coaching, it is literally up to the person. Mm-hmm. You know, I have had 2 clients with the same work schedule, the same exact situation, similar body types, similar habits, and all of it. And one of them got no results. The other one got incredible results.
Well,
and the reason is because it's on them. And I hate when people hit me up for case studies. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I got a bunch of them.
Well,
I think people I've made a ton of money and done a bunch of stuff with. I also got a bunch of people that didn't do shit.
I think if a client reached out to a coach and was like, hey, how do you like your coach? It's probably going to be fairly biased anyway. They're either going to say they're great or they're not. And we'd be like, well, why the hell are you with them then? So I think if you're...
And what coach is going to give that person the connect for that testimony?
Well, no. But I'm saying like go to that coach's page and reach out to the clients that are on his page.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those clients of his are the ones that they're reaching out to.
Sure.
They're not reaching out to the coach first. So I would say like if you're looking for a new coach, look for what it is that you're looking for and ask those clients specifically of that coach.
Yeah.
You know, all these expectations that you have, and if they're, you know, a good fit, you know, if that is, then go out there. But that's what I would say.
I would say everything from the beginning of their process, their meet and greet, their rapport building, that's the way they treat the beginning of their process.
I was just going to dive on communication because bottom line is it's if the coach is not communicating efficiently, you know, if the coach is not communicating with the client, how's the progress going to be made? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, when it comes down to it, a good coach, you know, wants to not only change someone's life, but wants to teach them what's going on. So you know, teaching a person to catch a fish is different than giving them a fish. Mm-hmm. You know, and if you got a coach that's going to keep throwing a fish across the table, not actually going to communicate with you enough to understand what's going on, I think that's a huge issue because a lot of times there's so many coaches that have no clue what they're doing. I say to people, ask the coach why he asked you to do.
Always ask why.
Yeah, ask
if they
why.
don't explain it,
and they don't. And a lot of times they won't have an answer, or it's some boilerplate answer that clearly they're just saying because they don't have an answer. They don't know what the answer is.
I think that's always one of my biggest things is, and Justin probably can attest to this, is I like to explain things in depth.
Oh yeah.
And I always tell people my goal for you is not to stay with me forever.
Yes.
My goal for you is to be able to continue to move forward and make progress confidently. And if you're not sure about something, I didn't do my job well, or you just weren't paying attention, right? But I had a conversation with somebody not long ago, and their entire prerogative with their clients, and it's no disrespect by any means, right? It's just apples and oranges. But he's like, I train my clients in such a way to make them know that they can't do this without me. And I was like, yeah, well, if it works for you, that's the way, and that's fine. Basically he just kicks their ass to a level. And so, but on the other side of that, that's what people want. People want that, right? They want to feel like, they got their ass kicked and maybe there's a sense of accomplishment there, and they're not trying to do that to themselves. So, that's a game you play. So, my objection has always been, or objective has always been to, teach as much as possible. Cause I also think too, when you know why you're doing something, your ability to adhere to a program and also be aware of what's happening during that process, you're going to be a little bit more mindful of it. You're going to know what to look for. So I think that's a positive thing to do from a coach's standpoint is to do that. So you have a better response from the client as well.
100%. And I mean, my goal is to set my clients free. You know what to do. Granted, if you want to stick around because you want some accountability, I get that. That's totally fine. But you know what to do. And the idea that, you're going to get someone from point A to point B with the understanding of how they did that so they can choose to go to C on their own. To me, that's what a good coach is all about.
100%. Yeah, it's funny. I have the majority of my clients are pretty well off. And they don't even talk to me. They have no interest. They talk to Jonathan, right? But they don't even talk to me. Like they just pay me every 90 days, 6 months, whatever, crazy amounts of money, and they just want the app.
Yeah,
they don't even give a fuck. They're like, and some of them like don't even do it, and they're like, all right, dude. But they just like they're like, I just need to be part of it. I just need to, whatever, and you're like, dude, what the fuck, like, But it is funny because like when you do give them like the great experience, and on top of that you have the right client. Honestly, I'd flip the script. I would say, what do you look for when you're interviewing a client? Because I think all three of us would be able to say like, you know what, like some people are less than desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a call.
And it typically is based on the price of the program. But either way, that's just me.
I tell you what, so this is funny. I had a client, or not a client, I had a call the other day, and I literally was like, honestly, man, I was like, I'm going to be very forthcoming. I don't think that you and I'd be a good fit. I said that. And I told him exactly what I was going to do. And I just was like, and I hope he doesn't see this, but I was like, my head hurt after talking to this guy for 40 minutes. Kristen walked downstairs and like her apartment, she's just like, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm like, honestly, man, I don't think that we'd be a good fit. I really don't. And so
I exit interview people.
Yeah. But it's not often, right? And I don't like to do that because I know there are a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there have been some instances where I kind of felt that way and I went ahead with it anyway. And they ended up being good clients, but they just needed a lot more guidance. And then it was a lot more patience that I was prepared to have at that time. And they became really good clients, and I was really glad that I stuck it out with them and had the patience and really taught them, and they did well for the most part. But that guy just was like, I'm not having it. Now, today, on the way here, I had a phone call with a client that I coached 15 years ago, I would say. Awesome girl. And I was like, look, she's like, I wish I could afford you. I was like, listen, like, it would be great to work with you again. It would be a pleasure. Like, what's good for you? And I'll work with people like that all day long because I know damn well she's going to kick ass. Yeah. She's married, 2 young ones, and she's a school teacher. Like, she ain't got money, like not that money. And I'm like, I'm okay with that because people like that make me enjoy my job the most. And I will, and I'm not saying that I would do it for everybody. This is maybe edit this part out. They're like, he gives discounts. No, fuck off. I live in California now. Okay.
Rates went up.
The rates went up. Fuck off. But yeah, like I just want clients that want to do well. And when you find people that you want more for them than they do for themselves.
Yes.
Man, I hate that shit.
I mean, but when it comes down to it, I want to win.
Yeah.
And if it's like a dance. A client is a teammate. And if they're not willing to play the game, I'll find someone who wants to play the game with me.
Let's go. That's awesome, guys.
What's the next one? One more?
One more.
Diet fatigue. When to push through or when to pivot. It's a good one. I have one right now that I'm working with.
What was it? I missed it. Sorry.
Diet fatigue. When to
diet fatigue. When to push through or when to pivot.
Oh man, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I got one right now.
I have no answer for this.
The one, yeah, of course not. You have one gear. Yeah, it's getting better. It's gotten better.
Fucking deal with it.
And we've actually kind of talked a little bit about this already, like in terms of metabolism, but you can only do so much cardio. You can only pull away so much food, and your body becomes resistant. And like, so this girl that I'm coaching now, I don't think I finished the story. She was doing 2 hours of cardio a day, lost 3 pounds. And
this is the one that you got it 10 weeks out, and you couldn't even tell she was.
She didn't even look like she was prepping for anything. And so we're going on our 3rd week. She's down 10 pounds, and she's training 3 and 4 days a week. Her cardio is solely outside walking for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. We've pulled everything back. And I actually did a video on basically talking about this, is that if you're getting to a point where your body starts to stall in weight, because weight shouldn't be your only metric of progress.
No.
The scale is not going to be linear, and nor do you want it to be. Right. And so that's why, like, same thing with my clients, I always have them track their weight daily. Right. And at the end of the week, so what do you train that day? What was your cardio? Was it off day? Was it legs? Whatever it was, whatever your fasted weight was. And so every week when we check in, we can see the volatility of that scale, because that's monitoring your inflammatory markers more than anything, because you're not going to gain fat. You're not going to gain muscle, nor are you going to lose fat or lose muscle at a rapid rate, but we're going to retain and expel water rather quickly. There's 8 pounds in a gallon. I don't think a lot of people even realize that. They're like, that much? Yes, that much.
Water's heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. So for her, like, we pulled everything back and her body was just like, it's like an overheating engine, right? You turn the car off, you let it sit, everything goes down. That's exactly what the body's like. It's not that you only burn fat when you're moving, you're doing cardio. You're constantly burning energy. Now, the rate at which you're burning is going to be dependent on your metabolism. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, the greatest metabolic stimulus that we have is going to be food.
Yep.
Training, cardio, those are just energy expenditure tools, right? You're not just burning when you're doing those things. And that's where people fall into that trap, that they think that they're like, I have to eat less, and I have to, God forbid, I have to burn more than I'm consuming.
Oh God, I'm so tired of hearing that.
The worst. I'm
my God.
I'm like, food is energy, food is cognitivity, food is performance, it's recovery. Like, if you're burning more than you're consuming, like, what's happening? Where's it going? Like, just kind of a fair question there. It's logic, And so to answer that question, I would say, if you start feeling really, really sluggish and your weight's becoming stagnant or even going up, I would say to pivot. But pivoting is going to look different for everybody. So
that's the hard part. What is the pivot?
Exactly. The pivot would be, in my opinion, it's to scale back, and always remember that more isn't better. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling like fatigued, don't be afraid to take a rest day. Like, make sure your water's there. Don't be afraid. Nobody is like losing progress because they took an off day.
No.
Sure.
I tell my clients all the time, if you have a bad night's sleep, you don't get to train. Sleep is so important to this whole drill. And the idea of, it's one of the things I focus on right out of the gate is we work on sleep hygiene. We get people sleeping well, because sleep is a great barometer. Like, if they start getting a little too cooked, they're going to start sleeping poorly. And if there's a pattern of sleeping poorly, that's a really big sign that something's got to change.
Yeah, your nervous system is super wound up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and you at that point you start feeding a little more. You start feeding in, and It's the ripple effect is go back the other way.
Yeah.
And it's small changes. It doesn't have people think, oh, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to increase my calories 1,000 calories, 1,500. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Incremental changes, real small.
And I have a big one on like single file. Let's just change one little thing and see how that affects you. And then from there, we get some feedback. The body tells us, gives some information. We know what to do next.
I think that's an important element there is, like you said, making one small change, because people will oftentimes jump to making big changes in multiple things. And then they really like, how do you know what's working and what's not? You're throwing so many things at the wall and seeing what'll stick.
Yep.
And you have really no way of differentiating what's working.
Right.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, I've gone from, like where I'll increase someone's red meat, if they're eating a lot of, say, chicken breast, just changing the source of protein into more of a micronutrient rich protein can make a big difference. And all it is just changing, we're not giving more or less. It's just changing what they're eating. And that will, in many cases, change that ripple the right direction. Nice.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We got to wrap up.
We do. I got to go take Jax to the football game. So
this is awesome. We're going to meet again tomorrow.
What's going on with that? What time? Where?
Oh, what's to train?
Oh, no.
Well, let me close this out real quick.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening to the Wolves Only podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click, make sure you comment. Make sure you click like, all the good stuff. We will put John and Brandon's information down below. If you guys are looking for a fucking badass coach or coaches, make sure you reach out. We'll make sure that you guys can get a hold of them right away. I appreciate you guys listening to the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWX. We are fucking out.
Bam. Thank you, guys. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was great.